Hi, welcome to Spanish 101, and today we're going to be talking about the indirect object and how it works in Spanish. This is just a quick overview of how to identify it and how it works in Spanish. So our objectives for this video is by at the end of it, you'll be able to quickly identify the indirect object in a sentence in Spanish, and it will also help you reinforce what you already know about indirect object. So go back to those two questions, and we've learned about them in the previous video, but just as a recap, what's indirect object? So indirect object, it's a noun referring to someone or something that is typically acting as a recipient, and it's not the primary object being acted on. So as we know, the primary object being acted on is the direct object. But in this case, the indirect object, it's usually someone or something acting as the recipient of that object being acted on. And how can we identify it? Well, in Spanish, it's a little bit different, but it kind of follows the same pattern. The indirect object is usually at the end of the sentence, and it's preceded by the personal a most of the times, preposition a, and para. And an example of that is para ella, a ella. So whenever you see this para or a or a, ella, it's gonna give you an idea if that could be the indirect object or not. But we're gonna be looking at more examples. So here I have Bill, who is doing something. Bill da la pelota a Luis. Bill da la pelota a Luis. So we know that da, it's the verb dar, which is to give. So Bill gives the ball to Luis. Okay, so who's receiving the ball? Luis. So in this case, Luis will be our indirect object. La pelota, it's our direct object, and Bill, it's our subject because he's doing the action. Okay, so let's look at the next example. Peter da las flores a Juana. So again, we have a recipient, in this case will be Juana. Who's receiving the flowers? Juana. And from the video that we did before, we kind of saw this pattern, and it looks pretty similar to what it looks in Spanish. So yeah, it's kind of noticeable. The next one, Ana presta el carro a María. So who's receiving the car? María. María will be our indirect object. Okay, so just to a quick practice, what I want you to do is I want you to identify the indirect object in each of the sentences. So what you're going to do is you're going to pause the video, work on it on your own, and then press play when you're ready to check your answers with the answers here. Okay, so now pause the video and press play when you're ready. Perfect, so let's continue. Let's quickly identify the indirect object. So in this case, Luis will be our subject, compra, our verb, el regalo, which means the present or a gift. Luis compra el regalo para su mamá. So in this case, who is the recipient of the object? In this case, mama. So this will be our indirect object because she's receiving the gift. The gift will be our indirect, our direct object because it's the thing or the object being acted on. Okay, mandamos una carta a nuestros padres. Okay, mandamos will be our verb, and within it, embedded in this conjugation, we already know that we're talking about the subject, we. Mandamos una carta a nuestros padres. So who's the recipient of whatever's happening? Nuestros padres, they're receiving the letter, which it's going to make una carta our direct object, and a nuestros padres, the indirect object. Luis presta su juguete a Mauricio. So we have Luis, our subject, presta, which is to lend. It's our verb. Su juguete, a toy, his toy. Su juguete a Mauricio. So, su juguete, it's going to be our direct object, and a Mauricio, our indirect object, because he's the recipient. Pablo toca el piano para su madre. Pablo, our subject, toca, our verb, el piano para su madre. So who's the recipient here? Will be su madre. So indirect object and direct object. And like I said on the previous video, it's really, I really like doing this, just making sure you know how everything fits in a sentence. It gives you a good idea of what role is every part of the sentence playing. Subject, verb, direct object, indirect object, and you could even go beyond and say, okay, Sue, it's our possessive adjective. I mean, possessive adjective. You have a personal A, and you can just go deeper and deeper and then just try to understand exactly how everything fits in. It's really useful. It helps a lot. Okay, los estudiantes preguntan al maestro. So, los estudiantes, our subject, preguntan, our verb, and who's the recipient? They're not asking, the teacher is not the object being acted on, but he's the one who's receiving, the recipient of what's happening. So that will be our indirect object. And then the last one, Luis, subject, muestra, verb, la tarea, the homework, our direct object, and a Pepe, our indirect object. Okay, so check your answers and make sure you are following how to identify the indirect object, because that's the purpose of this video. As you can see, there are a few cues that will let you know, like para, para, al, and a. So notice those prepositions that are kind of going to give it away, but you still need to understand what's happening in the sentence, like who's the subject, who's the direct object, and who's receiving the action. That way you'll be able to use indirect object pronouns, because that's ultimately the goal that we want to accomplish. So in the next video we're going to be talking indirect object pronouns and how they all fit in the structure of a sentence. But for now, just make sure you know how to identify the indirect object, which is super important. Well, thank you for watching.